You can tell by the way this poem tries to rhyme that it wants to be found amusing, so it makes no plans in its rhythms or its scans to be anything more than just soothing. It does not pretend to deliver a wisdom profound and true. It doesn't play on your heart like a zither. It doesn't give you gristle to chew, and it need not plot and pander to your higher and nobler sense. It merely needs sufficient candour to make rhymes seem like accidents. So don't be disappointed. Overlook his folly and hold the poet dear. Nobody said he wasn't tried, and nobody said he's Shakespeare. The lollop of day came up this way to tickle the nuggle of night, and fondle the frangles of warm good mornings, put the tingle of 10 in the yawn of the dawn's delight. Quite, quoth 10, exhilarated. I did the dawn. But the sun, young and hung, increased in the east, rehabilitated, and a massive big Monday was born. Some days my head spins with sins until I forgive myself for not forgiving. But on other days, my head aches with a thought that snakes and whines and won't deliver. Some days I am oppressed in my head with a thought that the dead might not like the living. But most days I just fret on debt, or that I won't be called for dinner. Bog McGrath was a very odd man, not least because each morning, as the moon lampooned and shunned the sun, he'd be laying back and yawning. It is but a cosmic play, he said, them stars and orbs in heaven. They can play all day is what I say. I won't be moved till 11:15. Courting and love and seduction are such a treacherous production, it's impossible to know where to start. It's bound to end in failure if you start with genitalia, but your chances are no better if you start it with your heart. Outer space is big and black except for spots of light. You can look all day and not see this. It's best to look at night. There are, they say, in the Milky Way, 1,000,000,000,000,000 stars, and this is not to mention the erratic ones like Jupiter and Mars. There is a vast profusion there, to the south and to the north. It's said that space is just the place that man should venture forth. And far away, in light years yet, it's said there's beings just like we. Well, it's just a guess, but I would bet if I can't see them, they probably can't see me. Cathartic Neptune like a funnel, all lines and angles, circles too. Darwin stood in opposition and met his maker at the zoo, and the arcs of Marx went round and round, placing Newton in a spin. Sigmund Freud, that planetoid, reinvented sin. But most of all, before the fall that confronted Copernicus and Braque, Pluto crossed the milky slip and knocked a hole into the arc. Cathartic Neptune said hello to the ancient planet Seven, and before Einstein could find the time, declared a war in heaven. L is for lawn, D for dawn, O is for oh what a terrible thing, that the trees have knees and the goats have throats, but apricots put the A's in spring. Lizards groan, grass bemoan, a fish with a wish, a bee with a bone. There are dragonflies in dragon skies, earwigs putting E's in everything. All about it's D for drought, but apricots put the A's in spring. The speckled hen of fond desire stood up and in a voice of ire spoke to me a warning. There is ice, she said, and fire, and though both of them are dire, you must choose one or the other by the morning. Crusty, mangled Monday night at the only bar in town, with a barmaid with a moustache and a bouncer with a frown, and an assorted array in all their decay of all the young and beautiful things, holding their hands to their face in surprise to reveal their engagement rings. And amidst the smoke and haze of cheap perfume and swirling lights at the back of the room, the pool balls crack and there's an exchange of cues. On the television screens is the late news. People dance in ones and twos. A salesman stirs his coffee with a spoon. And here and there is a face of trouble, lonely singles and crowded couples, and sitting in the corner, sweating like a fish in a sauna, is a postal worker in his 50s, Bill. He had had a good life, had once had a wife, but had thrown it away in a night and a day, and 10 years later was regretting it still. And the conversation rambles as another vodka scrambles the syntax of speakers in tracky dacks and sneakers, and a guy with the hairpiece, reliving his youth, insists to a young girl he's telling the truth. And another guy is full of advice on how to live a decent life as he slurs his words and downs another pot. Women in short skirts looking for beers, a woman in mascara hiding her tears, a man with a mobile phone looking at the clock and calling home, saying, "I'm sorry, I forgot." And among the mirrors and movie posters, the cigarette butts and torn-up coasters, the pool balls crack again. The Salvation Army walks through. And when the light drops low and the music drops to slow, those with nowhere to go, as the morning light lingers, hold up their fingers and order another two. On a crusty, mangled Monday night at the only bar in town, with a barmaid with a moustache and a bouncer with a frown, and the various faces from various places in various states of elation or gloom, a guy with a mullet and tight blue jeans cracking jokes to drunken teens, a guy in a singlet with old tattoos provides a commentary on the news, and a salesman stirs his coffee with a spoon. There was a young Stuart went grinning, thinking it not as a sinning, but God saw him do it, said, "Listen up, Stuart, it is when there's pride underpinning." An iconoclast known just as Michael objected that time doesn't cycle, but goes in a line by God's plain design, just as it says in the Bible. There was a young monk named Martin who rejected the price they were asking for a note from the Pope dispensing the hope that a sinner can pay for a pardon. Luther decided that works are beloved of theology's jerks, and that a priest's ordination is a common vocation, just as it is with the Turks. There was a reformer named Zwingli, who prayed till his toes went all tingly. Impressed by infinity, he questioned the Trinity, and conceived of the one just as singly. There once was a prominent master, who was taught by his Calvinist pastor that his prominent place was in God's chosen race, and that everyone else faced disaster. The Protestants rose up in schism, because they saw through a Protestant prism that man's every labour reflects on the Saviour, and the price that he'd paid when arisen. Abu Hassan, a pious man, walked to the northern pole, but was filled with regret when the sun didn't set and the cycle of prayers didn't roll. The night prayer just wasn't there, while the morning one lasted for 30 days, and the ones in between, or so it seemed, were at no particular phase. He'd had to find in other climes a fix on the holy shrine. The trouble here was more severe. He couldn't divine the times. In desert lands to wash his hands had been a test of faith, but at least the sun went up and down and was never 6 months late. But with steadfastness he prostrated and followed the twos and fros, because a pious man can understand that the secrets of the ecliptic are more bizarre than just cryptic, and when best to say, God knows. Malkuth, to tell the truth, is only kingdom to Kether. The god of Hod is just a clod unless he first surmounted Yesod, and transcended the surmounting, as it were. The hairs in his beard have disappeared by the time you get to the abyss. But even Tifereth is sudden death once you're bored with bliss, and Ein Sof Ur is not as pure as Ein Sof or his wrath, and there's nothing to gain from the nothing of Ein. Of this you can be sure. Such is the plight of fallen man. The God alone should say, I am. Hokmah is wise, but wears a disguise. Binah is maternal, but her darkness eternal. It's behind this tree that Adam hid. The thing about the Kabbalah, it should be said to every dabbler, is that by Kabbalistic means one can conjure everything from nothing, so it seems. And this, in fact, is exactly what one did. I'm sure shaken for Shirley, and she's sure shaken for me. Surely Shirley shakes and makes me shake incessantly. I saw her in a shoe store, with her shapely legs on show. The shape of legs I sure adore, so I said a short hello. She went down to the seashore for shells while ships were slow. I shook her hand, and what is more, made her shout out, oh. Oh, she shouted shamelessly, and shared another shout of woe. I said she should shake aimlessly, shake that sugar to and fro. Shenanigans, she suggested. I said I shouldn't disagree. So we shagged and shortly rested, schmoozing by the sea. I'm sure shaken for Shirley, and she's sure shaken for me. Surely Shirley shakes and makes me shake incessantly. This Thursday longs for Friday's nuanced splendour, untroubled in the molten sunlight of the dawn, when warbling songbirds, sober after another big November, unpick the stitching in the artificial lawn. The sun comes up and makes of Thursday what it will, determined to irradiate mountains, rivers, fields, cities, towns, glowing with new-found outlines, daisies as high as the windowsill, where the digitalis flops around and pumpkin flower still abounds. This Thursday swoons upon a merry swagger, unlike other days which merely lag and spindle forth. Drunk on sun, a hunk of fun, a balk, a turn, a jerk, a stagger. The whole day sings aloud, like starlings winging north. And north they fly, above the sprinklers and the pools, above the houses' chimneys and the solar panels on the roofs. No longer will this Thursday linger there with Wednesday's many fools, but will make of aluminium deck chairs existential truths. The Lolly Tolbooth lived in a ramshackle beside her Uncle Jim, who had a chimney and a window and a whisker on his chin that in itself went down and nearly touched his toes, which in themselves were numbered 10 in anatomical repose. The Lolly Tolbooth came around, then knocked the knocker on the door that fastened on a brassy bit that in itself went down and nearly touched the floor. "Hello, hello," she called. "Is anybody home?" "Come in," said Jim, who, looking thin, had that minute slipped a biscuit from his tin and had just hung up the phone. "The daffodil is blooming," said the Lolly, "and it's fuming with a perfume that is a delight unto my nose, that in itself is in the middle of my face, exactly where you would suppose." "The sun is out," said Jim, and with a shout, "Spring is in, I have no doubt daffodils won't commit the sin of ever trying to be a rose," which made the Lolly smile, and in a while they sat down under the Floribunda, that in itself was waking from its winter slumber to grow exactly as a Floribunda grows. Things, said Jim, would soon be grim if things were other than they are, which made the Lolly smile again, which in itself was exactly when, taking a biscuit from the tin, she said, "Jim, you're a star," which made his whiskers wiggle, and he wriggled his 10 toes. Trudge the merry trundle, for it is what it is, as halos are to angels, and as hers is to his, and the perfect indication is a wink and a whisper and a wag, and the blemish of life, like the lot of Lot's wife, makes you think of a stain on a rag. Trudge the merry trundle, no matter what they say, for gorgeous turkeys will embolden any bold Thanksgiving Day, with cranberries and strange relations, with regrets and pets, and notations on negotiations, and the imposition of joy, like toying with a toy, makes mild-mannered verbs do splendid wild gyrations. Trudge the merry trundle and hoop it up, young man. Have a hand to have at having, and a plan to have a plan. Steamy evenings with one's beloved, like heaving weavings in a cupboard, stir up dust as much as lust, and though it rankles all your fibres and nips the ankles of your tigers, denial would be denying it is grand. Trudge the merry trundle and waylay that sorry jigger in your heart. Go forward in earnest, earnestly, well earned, and before you finish, be sure you started at the start. The tantalizing tenacity of everything is like the gloomy glitter of a wedding ring. For goodness sake, make no mistake, eat the cake before it falls apart. Trudge the merry trundle steady, trudge it long, trudge it true, trudge it like you mean it honestly, even if you do. Stale hazards infiltrate the daily burden and can strangle even the unwilling. Pale, haggard inward gates among the mainly urban dangle will fill the ill you're filling. Never say tomorrow. Forever say please at breakfast time. Trudge the merry trundle steep, and if you dig a hole, dig it deep, and then declare the mine is mine. The jealous General Richards, back alive from Patton Gorge, knocked upon the door belated, attending to the gal he did adore. "I'm here," he said. "I'm back," he said. "Come," he said, "into this long embrace." But his gal did disappear with a steaming engineer who straightened all her curvatures and had soot upon his face. She Richard inhospitable, she Malcolm Michael into sack, and she don't like Jed or Tom or Russell or the men that paint the freight cars black. If the world's a living thing, where's the grandeur in its gate? Thus blind Tony, wondering, went up to meet his fate. "I'm here," he said. "I'm back," he said. "The autumn did not daunt me. The 7 fingers of the sun tap the sap and thumb the drum with a rhythm that does haunt me. Unimpressed, she got undressed and drank a pint of bland hellos. But I'm free, she said, of shackles, free of shanties by the shunting bin. We're back on track to live in sin before the morning mellows. Desperate strangers rode the last train east. General Richard was among them with a gun. His gal did disappear with a steaming engineer, and what hurt him was, not least, he had loved her since the day the war begun. If 6-inch gauge was a bold invention, he did think unto himself, no train chugging coal mummer can thwart my bold attention when I say I'm back or else. Blind Tony saw it coming. He staggered through the snack car door. I'm here, he said. I'm back, he said, and with a smile of strange elation, as they pulled into the station, fell dead upon the floor. She Richard inhospitable, she Malcolm Michael in the sack, and she don't like Jed or Tom or Russell, or the men that paint the freight cars black. Trusted flashlight, have me back. I'll do it ne'er again. I put thee down upon the ground, have not seen thee since then. I stumble in the darkness, oh, on obstacles I cannot see. Trusted flashlight, have me back. I'm blind and lost without thee. The splendiferous wastrel that is normality, normally wasted in the most splendiferous ways, is, being normal, not some tardy circumlocution of reality, as against eccentricity, say, or serendipity, both of which are all hoopla and yibbity-yibbity, but those dull yet yearning, eternal, variously sundry, sighing days when, well, normality pays, and it does, handsomely. Gnawing on normal goes the splendiferous wastrel. What a cobber after all. Wasted and wastrel-like in his very kernel, he puffs out his chest, normality does, that sublime present tense of absentee, and says, against all idiosyncrasies, I am dubious of random shows of flair. Yeah, what an intense buzz, as scintillating as a slow sausage sizzle on a standard Saturday morning. Bursting with sterling merit is normality, much maligned, wasted in amongst the glorious detritus, splendiferous against more showy forms of fritter. There are entirely empty afternoons, for instance. Fantastic. And any number of long, lonely nights, starry enough nonetheless. The strangely fulfilling nothingness that is chewy chocolate bars and glitzy TV game shows. Splendiferous wastrel, indeed. Let no man say that boredom has no beauty. Normality, that good-looking little apparition. There are days when being weird carries no attraction, when action is anathema, when wasting away the Piscine tenor of time is a bonzer undertaking in itself. Oh, sandwiches and tabloids, I declare, no strange hairdos can compare. Normal is sufficient quite sufficiently. A splendiferous rupture smooths a cruisy job. He'll drive a lonely habit all the way to tedium, normality. His average height and his weight is medium, normality. Guardian wastrel of my latter days. The songster in your heart will sing to you your part in the chorus of the times in which you live. But should you forget the song, you're allowed to just pretend and hum along, as long as you hum along with all the gusto you can give.